Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I recently got some questions regarding lipless cranks off of a video that I did on them regarding where and when I like to use them. And the question that I got, actually several of the questions that I got, asked me more about the size of the lipless cranks and if I ever throw some of the larger ones that are on the market. And my answer to that is absolutely I do. And I've got some very specific times and places where I feel like the big lipless crankbaits outshine a standard size lipless crankbait. So that's what I want to share with you today. Before I do share those tips with you, I want to remind you though that if you're looking to support the channel, please use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate link to make your tackle purchases. Also, if you want some help on your local lakes, check out the lake breakdowns that I do where I mark up maps, provide 40 waypoints for specific seasons. It's a great way to get you pointed in the right direction for that body of water. All right, and if we're talking about certain times of the year, big lipless cranks might be one of those baits that you want to use. As an example here, this is the XR100. So this is the Xcalibur XR100. It has since been discontinued. It's one of my favorites, but this is comparing it to the XR50, which would be the standard size lipless crank. So you can see it's substantially larger. This is a 1 ounce bait. This is a ½ ounce bait. It's roughly an inch longer. So it's not like giant when you compare it to other big baits that are in the bass market. So, when you compare it to a 20-foot diving crankbait, it's roughly the same size. The one thing I'll point out though, when you're talking about big 1 ounce size lipless crankbaits, is they put out a ton of vibration and they just have a much bigger profile than they actually look like in the water. So because of that, I do think you are going to limit the number of bites that you get. I think you'll outproduce in terms of bites, probably close to 2 to 1, throwing a standard ½ ounce size lipless crankbait compared to a 1 ounce. The thing is, your average size will be much better on the 1 ounce models. So, knowing that, you kind of go out with the mindset that a 1 ounce lipless crankbait is going to be a much better bait at trying to catch larger fish. So it's maybe not a bait that I would go out just to produce bites. But if I know I'm fishing a lake that produces lots of 4+ pound caliber fish, or I need 20 pounds in a tournament, it's a bait that I will very much consider throwing. But even having said that, there's specific times and places where I really do like to throw them. The first and my absolute favorite time to throw these big lipless cranks is after the bass have spawned and you start having a gizzard shad spawn on shallow bars and shell beds. So I'm talking about main lake bars and shell beds that are generally going to be in 8 foot of water or less, anywhere from 2 to 8 foot of water. And you have lots of the gizzard shad that will get up and start spawning on top of these shallow bars. And a big lipless does a really good job in mimicking the profile of a bigger gizzard shad versus a threadfin shad. So that's my number one time I like to throw it. So you generally speaking, you're talking about May through June is the peak period to do that when those gizzard shad, very depending where you're at in the country, but generally speaking, those are the 2 months where those shallow main lake bars really will do well with a big lipless like this. So once that period is over, a lot of the bass then will start setting up on offshore ledges. So if you're talking about TVA lakes, you've got your traditional ledges. Maybe you're talking about just a deep point on some man-made reservoir in other parts of the country. Up north here, you get a lot of fish that start moving off in the summer months, getting on deep humps and rock piles. That's a time when I do like to throw these, and I'll fish it in a yo-yo fashion where I let it go all the way to the bottom. I pull the rod tip up, bring it 3-4 feet off the bottom, let it fall back down. So if I've got offshore fish during summer months, the bigger lipless is a great way at generating strikes from those fish because it's a really good bait already to create reaction strikes, but the bigger profile gives the larger fish something to key in on. So that's the second time I like to throw it. The third would be if you're fishing around fish that are suspended in standing timber. It's a really good way to draw fish from longer distances that are suspending somewhere amongst those trees. So a lot of times when you have big fish that are suspending in those trees, you need a bigger profile bait to get them to leave wherever they're sitting within that tree to go eat. So a bigger profile bait is a good way to draw fish out of standing timber. Now keep in mind, this bait is beyond obnoxious when you're talking about making sound. So the draw power from attracting active fish is excellent. You will draw fish from a long distance away, and that can be one of the biggest keys anytime you're fishing standing timber. You know, those fish are usually suspended by a tree or under a limb. They don't necessarily want to leave unless they feel like they have a good opportunity to feed. And by using a bait like this, you can draw them from long distances away to come eat it. Plus, it's a bigger profile bait, which gives them the idea that they're getting one good meal versus having to track down 20 different meals. The last time where I really feel like a 1 ounce lipless crankbait can really shine is during the fall months. You know, when you start getting a lot of those fish, a lot of the shad populations start moving into the backs of creeks. A lot of the fish start kind of dying off a little bit. You've got your shad and your bluegill, young of the year, are at full grown sizes at that point. So therefore, the fish are just going to be generally keying in on a little bit larger forage, and your lipless is a great way to do it. Plus, what I'll add with that is, especially if you're on a lake that's got a bunch of shad where they are migrating into the backs of creeks, a lot of times there's so many shad that you need to do something to get your bait to stand out. And a bigger profiled, louder bait is a good way to get the fish's attention away from the thousands of other shad that are in that area. So it's another peak time for me to throw these big ones is during the fall months. It just seems like the fish are keying in on bigger bait, bigger targets, and they have no problem hitting a 1 ounce lipless. So if you have not been throwing a 1 ounce lipless, you really might want to try it. There are times and places, like I mentioned, where it will outshine and give you a great opportunity at catching a giant bass. They catch fish very, very well, and it's just one of those baits that is fun to throw. So if you haven't thrown one yet, I recommend you giving it a try. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, we'll have a new tip coming out tomorrow for you.